Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. We're joined by the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch, as well as the Agri-News Director for 620 CKRM Regina, Ryan Young. I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director, Doug Falconer. Of course, we're past the midway point of August, hard to believe, and harvest hasn't quite got going to the extent that we'd most likely to like to see at this point, is it, Kevin?
It's certainly slower than recent years and behind the 5-year and 10-year average. But you guys tell me the 3%, I think that's the number that was quoted as far as overall progress. Biggest progress in the Southwest at 8%. But yeah, it's slower. The week ahead of the crop report was lots of rainy, damp weather. And when the next crop report comes out next week, it's going to talk a lot about the storms that went through and tremendous hail and wind damage in some areas of the province. So you get that close to harvest and see it all destroyed, that's a very difficult thing.
Yeah, there were reports, of course, this week of some very wild weather in that Saskatoon area. Did you experience any of that, Kevin?
I wasn't in Saskatoon. I was down at the farm, but my wife FaceTimes me and to show me the continuous lightning that was happening. It was just lighting up the sky continually. But when I was talking to her, they didn't receive all that much. But outside, not far outside of Saskatoon, I understand the Langham and Borden areas were hit very hard.
Ryan, what's conditions like in the Regina area?
Well, we did get a bunch of lightning kind of around the same time that wicked weather was coming around north of Saskatoon, and seeing the weather radar with that system coming around and the threat of a tornado. Quite scary, especially when the words life-threatening storm are used. So kind of felt a little bit for that Martinsville, Warman area. But so far, I haven't heard anything from Environment Canada about any confirmed reports of tornadoes. We're kind of following up on that, as well as I heard a rumor that there was baseball-sized hail that fell. So that's kind of interesting. But around the Regina area here, not really as wicked as around Saskatoon. It's been kind of pedestrian for this past week compared to the last couple weeks. Got a little bit of moisture, a lot of lightning, like I said, cloudy. No combines rolling out around the Regina Grand Coulee area yet. But again, every time I pass by the fields on my commute, just reminded of the kochia that's present and the weeds that are all over the place in some fields, and some of the lodging and some wheat crops. So hopefully, farmers there can get what they can at a harvest, and hopefully things work out there. But in terms of the Yorkton area, from what I understand, you guys got most of the rain for this past week.
We got some rain earlier in the week, but there's been nothing since. For instance, that big storm that hit the Saskatoon area, we've received absolutely nothing. So I would imagine we'll see some wheels turning here early next week in the Yorkton area. We took out GX94 supper in the field for week one on Wednesday. We were southwest of Melville. No actual combining going on. I did see one person desiccating, and the people we took supper out to, they had a field that was cut for green feed, I guess, or something to that effect. But other than that, there didn't look like there'd been any swathing or straight cutting going on in the area either. So I would suggest next week, if the weather holds, we will start seeing some wheels turning in a big time fashion. Something else that happened this week, of course, was the big meeting in Saskatoon on Thursday. We had the Saskatchewan Premier there, Agriculture Minister, Trade Minister, all meeting with some federal counterparts, including Federal Agriculture Minister Heath MacDonald and Cody Blois, the Parliamentary Secretary for the Prime Minister. A big meeting there. It sounds like they've all agreed to perhaps try to at least go to China and meet with them. Is that what you're hearing, Kevin?
It sounds like that's certainly what Premier Moe is pushing for. And really, this has to be a federal government decision. There's all sorts of people saying, "Oh, you should be in China. Go talk and go get this fixed." We're going to have to be able to negotiate something. The Chinese aren't going to just drop their tariffs because we're nice people and canola is a good product. We're going to have to give up something. There's going to have to be something on the other side of the table, and that really sits in the federal government's role right now in their mandate. And they haven't really been tipping their hand as to what they have to offer China in order to try to get tariffs on canola and peas reduced or eliminated. So really, it would be great to see a provincial and federal government initiative to go to China, and it would be great to see some flexibility and some plan on the federal government's part about what they can offer China to try to get a deal.
Ryan, you had a chance to listen to some audio from Carla Beck, the NDP leader, and of course, she was suggesting that this meeting, this trade mission, should have occurred weeks, maybe months ago. That was her intention, I guess.
Yeah, they say that they've been calling on the province to go to China numerous times since basically the first set of tariffs kind of came in around March this year. So while they're glad to see that the Sask Party government is finally moving ahead with this trade mission, they felt like it could have been much sooner. So that's kind of the big comments from Carla Beck. Not to mention too. Numbers she quoted from StatsCan about provincial exports being negatively impacted since the tariffs came into effect. So there's also that, and then from the news conference as well, we actually got a statement from the Sask Party government early Friday afternoon saying that Premier Moe is going to lead a trade mission to China September 6th to 12th. And then Trade Minister Warren Kading is going to lead a trade mission, a separate one to South Korea from the 6th to the 9th. So kind of a 2-for-1 deal there. And haven't really heard anything from the federal government. Cody Blois didn't really say anything or tip his hand as to whether they're going to join or not, but that kind of remains to be seen.
Kevin, your reaction to the news that it looks like it's just going to be in a week or two that they'll be heading to the Far East?
A lot of people say, well, go immediately, but really you need to line up some of your ducks before you go. You got to have meetings scheduled. You got to have a plan of attack. You can't just fly in and land there and suddenly that's going to make a difference. Arranging meetings with the appropriate officials and getting all your facts and statements in place takes some time. So that's a pretty quick time frame for governments to move. Yes, maybe there should have been more work. There should have been more work by the federal government leading up to this and the months leading up to this. And the impression was left on many in the industry that the federal government was working on it and that the temporary tariff on canola seed would not be in place, but that did not come to pass. So we'll do the best we can with what we have to work with. My expectation is it's going to be very difficult to get those tariffs removed. And I think the next order of discussion will be how do you compensate canola and pea producers for the losses incurred? I expect that to be the next order of discussion if all of these efforts fail.
That happened this week as we heard the Saskatchewan government announce mandatory testing for chronic wasting disease and bovine tuberculosis in certain wildlife zones across the province. Ryan, you're a hunter. Will this affect a lot of people by the sounds of it?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, depending on who you talk to, some guys they prefer to, keep the heads as a trophy, especially if it's an elk or a really good sized white-tailed deer or mule deer. But I can understand the reasons why you would want to do it. The province kind of responding to a case of CWD, I think around the east central region of the province last year, if I remember right, looking at the news release, as well as following up on bovine TB cases, especially news earlier this year of a cow having that disease around the Melville area. So kind of dotting their I's and crossing their T's and doing their due diligence to make sure that doesn't spread amongst hunters or wildlife or any other livestock. So that's good. Around my wildlife management zone, if I remember correctly, it's 38 or 39 or something like that. Um, I mean, we never really had an issue of CWD or bovine tuberculosis in our home area around Margot, so it doesn't really affect me as a hunter.
Kevin, I thought it was interesting that they suggested that bovine TB testing is to see if anything is going from cattle to wildlife. That's something you wouldn't normally expect.
No, it's not something you heard a lot about, although I think there was some of that in Manitoba a few years back. But and I'm not a hunter, but I had always understood that due to the fear of chronic wasting disease. A lot of people that had bagged white-tailed deer, for instance, would send the head away for testing and not consume the meat until they had the all clear, which is a bit of a hassle. You do come back with a positive case, then you shouldn't be eating the meat, and you've gone to that trouble for nothing. So, but again, I'm not a hunter, and that's just what I've heard from people. So take that with a grain of salt.
The announcement actually came right here in Yorkton on Wednesday. The Saskatchewan government has announced they're going to pay for up to half of the cost of upgrading Grain Millers Drive. It's just north of Yorkton. Of course, Grain Millers has a great big oat processing facility on that street or road or whatever you want to call it. And of course, Louis Dreyfus has their canola crushing plant there and the pea processing facility that's being built. And of course, JRI has a canola crushing plant there. Right now, it's just a gravel road and it's about 7 kilometers long. Sounds like they're going to upgrade it. Obviously, some very good news for the producers in this area that use that road.
Yeah, I think that's marvelous stuff, and people that don't travel the province, I don't think quite understand the hub that Yorkton is for agricultural processing, with all of those initiatives that you mentioned, as well as others in that zone, and a huge hub, especially for canola processing as well as oats. But I think the way the announcement came out, there were some people actually expecting, oh, this is going to be support for canola producers in light of the tariffs. The way some of the initial news came out about this announcement being made, and of course that wasn't the intention. That wasn't what was announced.
I did find it rather interesting. They didn't say how much they expect this program to cost, this project, and they didn't really give a timeline on it either, other than the fact that they were the city of Yorkton and the RM of Orkney and the provincial government were going to basically do a study on it. So I guess that's kind of where it's at right now. We don't really have a price tag yet. So as for other items, we did hear that BHP potash, the Jansen mine, the expected startup of it has been pushed back due to, I guess, mainly economic conditions. Your response to that, Kevin?
Well, I think projects just continue to get more and more expensive, whether it's the Aquatic Center in Regina or the BHP, the massive BHP mine at Jansen, Saskatchewan. So I think it gives companies some pause as they look at funding these. Everything in construction is far more expensive. Everything runs with cost overruns. So at least it'll be continuing. It'll be stretched out over a longer period of time for that economic benefit. So maybe not a terrible thing, but I'm sure the company wishes it could have proceeded more quickly.
Also, we've been following the market prices, and Ryan, you had a chance to speak with Adam Pacallo regarding the canola and wheat prices over the past week.
Yeah, and he said overall for canola and wheat, they were still kind of on the downward trend, kind of flirting with the lower end of the price range. Just kind of looking at the November canola contract closing this afternoon at 666.50. That's up $3.20 today. Over the last week, that's up $5.60. So nice to see a little bit of a recovery following that contract basically reaching the floor following last week's tariff announcement from China. And then for the Minneapolis Spring Week contract for September, that's up a quarter of a cent to $5.69.5 a bushel, down over the last week by about half a cent. So still kind of trending sideways slash plateauing, however phrase could be used with regards to the trend on that week contract. Nothing really specific in terms of factors affecting wheat. It's just simply, as Adam always says, the trend is your friend, and it always seems to be on the downward trend. So we'll see kind of how that price kind of acts once harvest gets underway and what kind of yields we get, conditions, and so on and so forth. And then with canola, he mentioned, interestingly enough, I believe it was the palm oil prices or soybean prices that were up over this past week. So kind of offsetting a little bit of the the losses that canola had, so kind of propped it up a little bit. So that's good to see. And then when I asked him about the trade mission to China that Premier Moe is going on, and potentially the federal government, if that could make the price go up or down, he said it all depends on what kind of results we get afterward, but acting in good faith and goodwill will certainly help things out. So that remains to be seen.
Kevin, your reaction to the fact that canola prices seem to have bounced back a little bit over the past week?
Yeah, there've been some minor improvements, but really we're looking at canola that's somewhere between $13 and $14 a bushel, depending where in the province you are and what market you're selling into, and that's still a full dollar a bushel below what we saw some time ago. You know, as we figure out the damage from the tariffs per se, it's going to be difficult to parse out what was caused by the tariff and what was normal fluctuation and soybeans and supply and demand. But economists will try to do that. I noticed on many other commodities beyond canola and wheat, harvest pressure is bringing prices down, and we're seeing softening in lentils, softening in pea prices, softening in feed barley prices as harvest gets underway in those commodities, and some of that product starts coming to market.
All right, and then of course we also got some news late Thursday that the Protein Industries Canada is looking for a new CEO. They just hired one in January, but here all of a sudden they're needing a new one. What have you heard on that front, Kevin?
No more than the announcement, which surprised me. Robert Hunter was been in there such a short period of time. I'd never really met the man or been at the same functions or anything. It would be interesting to know the story behind the story, why his term was so short. And he followed, of course, Mr. Gruel, that was in that role for many years and is now with the provincial government. But kind of a surprise. Something must have went awry there on one side or the other of that equation with that CEO.
And of course, they've started an expedited search to hire a new one. So, and that's probably where we can leave it for this week. So on behalf of the 620 CKRM Regina Agri News Director Ryan Young and Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com Kevin Hirsch, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Falconer saying so long until next time.